Pinochimon, if you're watching this, let me just say that I am not doing this based on whim, but based on actual concern for your mental health. So if you consider actual concern enough grounds to flag down this baby, then I suppose you fail to understand good old America's Bill of Rights and Amendment 1 of the Constitution. Then again, since you despise our country so much, I would guess this is a self-imposed ignorance. Anyway, on with our feature presentation.
Don't you know it? Don't you know it? Somebody loves you, don't you know it? Don't you know it?
Pinochimon. He is a weeaboo for all seasons. Aside from annoying several people in the commentary community, why is he a relevant subject for me? Well, I remember the guy who likes Pi 200 making a video on the guy, only to find out later that Pinochimon flagged it for bullying, or whatever arbitrary reason he could conjure up to try to regain some modicum of reputation. This I find hilarious, so I asked myself, if Pinochimon is so vocal and forceful in the comments section of Pi's videos and channel comments, does he do the same exact thing on other videos? This question was summarily answered when Blisterblood told me about Pinochimon around the same time as Pi, as he expressed his consternation with Pinochimon's ardent Japanophile ways and how he makes absurd claims about anime and manga. And these quite extremist views are usually articulated by long-winded, convoluted rants about how Japan is the ultimate utopia on Earth, and how the white man should be shortchanged, ignored, and forgotten, alongside the USA, which should capsize underneath its burden of greed. But that was not the end of it. I further made the assumption that Pinochimon not only did this to Pi and Blistered Blood, but also to other people via other videos on YouTube. And you know what? I was again correct in making this assumption. Because looking at his live feed, he is as transparent as ever. By looking at several of his comments, one can surmise that Pinochimon is, without a doubt, one of the more serious cases of Japanophilia, since he goes to great lengths to relate anything to anime and manga, even if the topic is so remote that the mere mentioning of Japan would confuse people to oblivion. Case in point, someone videotaped a child and posted it on YouTube. Usually these sort of videos are run-of-the-mill uploads that no one really pays attention to, unless you are a random user who likes looking at kids doing cute things or whatever. I personally would have no reason to watch such videos unless if that kid were related to me, because honestly, what is the point if there is other content available? However, apparently Pinochimon felt it was necessary to not only watch this video, but also relate the kid's actions back to his fervent and perpetual obsession with anime. How so? Well, let's check out the comment he left in the video, shall we? How old is Trevor? He looks to be about 4 years old. It's amazing how quickly kids grow up, especially these days. Also, he has blonde hair. Kinda weird for me to say that, but I always envy people with blonde hair. I always wanted blonde hair, never got that. I also envy people with Japanese hair, too. I would love to have both so I could do the visual K hairstyle, ... How hilarious that you envy blonde hair. I make this observation because later on I point out Pinochimon's apparent hatred for the United States. He hates the way we are greedy, that we have freedom, that our animation is horrid in comparison to the wonderfully wonderful world of Nippon, and not to mention that I guess we are the bourgeoisie who hated Japan and bombed them for the wrong reasons, even though 2,000 people died in the Pearl Harbor attacks. And you know, you like blonde hair, a characteristic of the Aryan race. Do the math, people. Pinochimon obviously suffers from some maladaptive issues. By the way, randomly mentioning anime hairstyles does not in any way relate to the kid or the video. That makes no sense, and it only serves to shove your strange fascination with anime into everyone's faces when they read it. It is no surprise that this particular comment was flagged for spam, just like any generic spam comment. Unless you're in the dark, Pinochimon, comments like these are tangential to the video, and offer nothing but annoyance and confusion to anyone reading it. Trying to relate fuck all to anime is a stretch of the mind, and without a doubt a ridiculous endeavor. It only serves to prove that you are so obsessed with anime that you cannot go one comment without mentioning it once. It really is tragic how you do not even realize that you do this and later reject the weeaboo label, even though you completely live up to that label by constantly referring to your faux utopia, Japan. Speaking of the dichotomy between anime and animation, Pinochimon over here clearly and overtly states that anime and cartoons are two distinct things. They are two separate entities altogether. Now, of course, one would jump to the conclusion that cartoons and anime is the same exact thing. Cartoons are the more general term for animation, whereas anime is the Japanese nuance of animation. However, since I want to prove this conclusion correct, I am going to consult several dictionaries. Dictionaries, I am sure, do not lie, unless we are in a nation that is reminiscent of Airstrip 1, though I'm sure you, Pinochimon, delude yourself into thinking that it is the case. First, let's read the exceptionally perceptive comment that Pinochimon left in regard to anime and animation.
No, this is a cartoon. Anime and cartoons are different. Anime is not short for animation. Only a moron would think of that. Wait, I actually feel sorry for you. Here, let me go see if there's an opening at the group home for you to stay at, ...
So apparently you're a fool if you think that Japanese anime is equivalent to animation. Now let's go to those dictionaries, shall we, and see what they have to say regarding anime. Merriam-Webster, a style of animation originating in Japan that is characterized by a stark, colorful graphics depicting vibrant characters and action-filled plots, often with fantastic or futuristic themes. Encyclopedia Britannica. Anime, style of animation popular in Japanese films. Early anime films were intended primarily for the Japanese market and as such employed many cultural references unique to Japan. For example, the large eyes of anime characters are commonly perceived in Japan as multifaceted windows to the soul. Much of the genre is aimed at children, but anime films are sometimes marketed by adult themes and subject matter. Dictionary.com. A Japanese style of motion picture animation characterized by highly stylized, colorful art, futuristic settings, violence, and sexuality. Oxford Dictionaries. Japanese movie and television animation often having a science fiction theme and sometimes including violent or explicitly sexual material. Compare with manga. Longman Dictionary of Contemporary English. Japanese cartoons and computer animation, pictures, films, etc. produced using a computer. And finally, Macmillan, a type of Japanese animated film that often shows a lot of violence or sex. Do I really need to continue spouting the same definition over and over and over again till you understand, Pinochimon, that anime is equivalent to animation? The word animation is in all these iterations of the definition of anime. Mind you, we went through 6 separate sources to figure this out, and I'm sure 6 well-respected and reputable sources are not going to deliberately spout out the wrong definition just to deceive. By the way, you just called all these dictionaries morons. Congratulations, Pinochimon, you fell for another delusion of yours that ultimately distorts the truth. I hope you are happy living with a false statement. This is incontrovertible and irrefutable evidence to suggest that anime is without a doubt a subset of animation. And if you question the dictionary, then I have no hope for your position, and the most you can come up with as a counter-argument is that the 6 dictionaries are all lying to you, which is highly uncanny and improbable. You have nothing to stand on in that respect. Now that I deconstructed that delusion of his, it's time to turn to one of Pinochimon's more salient characteristics, his unwavering loyalty for good old Japan. Let's read a comment where he openly declares his subservience to this grand old country. Here we go.
You gave me joy with your media. I pay you back by buying your products. If there was a way to buy stuff from a local farm, or so, I do that. Hell, I tell sell, I don't know how to spell, my house, or even my blood for you guys. Japan has done a lot for the world. I love anime, manga, etc. You guys are the best writers and make the best TV shows ever, not to mention your culture is the best in the world. You have a better understanding of people and how they work. Hell, you have advanced science too. So if I could sell my own body for money, I would.
So let me get this straight. You would sell your worldly possessions for Japan because of their media output. Wow, if that isn't extreme Japanophilia, I don't know what is. Which is why you deserve the label of weeaboo, because once you say things like you would give up your own blood to random Japanese people, it really becomes clear that your agenda is promoting Japan to be in a constant halcyon where the people are immortal and the anime and manga flawless. Even though Japan has economic problems and their population is quickly aging, as a select amount of people are bothering to have children there. Also, I love how you talk about how Japan has done a lot for the world, even though Sony was built from the ground up because one of the co-founders of Sony adopted the structure of the transistor by borrowing the license to create the transistor. So, in effect, the USA invented it, while the Japanese borrowed it and found new ways to market the transistor. They are innovators, but they aren't these gods unleashed upon the world, enlightening everyone with their infinite wisdom. It's true, Japan has done quite a lot of things, such as contributing to literature and genetics. However, so did the US with its invention of the light bulb, the modern novel, the modern refrigerator, pragmatism, and information theory. And Japan would not have begun trading with the West if it weren't for the efforts of a US Navy Commodore by the name of Matthew Perry. So our knowledge of Japan stems from USA intervention. If it were not for the same nation that you are making seditious remarks about, we would not even have started trade with Japan. So thank your lucky 50 American stars that we actually give a hoot about other people back in the day. Also, selling your own body for money. Wow, you are such a whore. Excuse me. I mean, a materialistic and backwards thinking idiot. First of all, how would you get the money if you already sold your damn body? Is your imaginary soul going to receive a rebate or what? Besides, who would you sell your body to? Japanese medical schools? I'm sorry, but your motivations for doing this and saying such things are so vague and questionable that it forces me to question your composure and the state it is in. Even if you brought Pinochimon to a high school reunion, he would relate his experiences in the past back to his oh-so-ostensible passion for Japan. Don't believe me? This comment proves otherwise.
Shelton High School, which means that back in 2006 I could have stumbled into you. I live in Shelton, which hasn't changed at all. If it burned down, I wouldn't even shed a tear. Same with this country. Anyway, I miss 2006. Good year to be an otaku.
Yeah, 2006 was a great year to be an otaku, just like 2007, 2008, 2009. I don't even know why you make such observations, Pinochimon. What does it accomplish? For many others, I'm sure it only elicits a languid response. A resounding I don't care is what people hear in their minds as soon as they read something as discursive as one of your comments, Pinochimon, and I sure as hell hear that every time I read one of them. Why do you think your comments have any gravitas when all you do is just say the same thing constantly in every single video, just worded differently? But to add to that list of things that this guy blurts out constantly, his hatred of the USA is so out of left field, so out of place that it makes me laugh. Honestly, why he bothers to constantly bash us for white nationalism when he constantly romanticizes Japan, thus promoting Japanese nationalism, is beyond me. And why you give nationalism such a negative connotation is beyond me when you have types of nationalism that include civic nationalism, which isn't xenophobic. Evidently, your hatred of the USA comes off as quite ethnocentrist, especially when you compare Japanese culture to American culture as something that is world superior. In fact, let's just dive into one of those ethnocentrist comments, shall we?
Japan is not doing this. Faux news, American fags. Please wake up and see what your government is doing. You are being tricked into hating countries and people. White nationalism, fascism, etc. See that? Japan outlawed this years ago, and you could pay a hefty fine for this. However, the truth is something called the rhino beetle. Some people eat it as an aphrodisiac in Japan. That is going extinct. Think before you speak. Also, don't believe in your government. Be a skeptic and tell MSM to... I can't complete my own sentences.
First of all, since when did our government promote fascism and white nationalism? When has this ever happened? Where do your conspiracy theories originate? Oh wait, they probably came from yet another system of delusions because last I checked, we had the Great Society in the 70s to let us know that other races did have a say in our way of life. And the idea of fascism is pretty hilarious when you got plenty of Democrats in office that are on the left side of the political spectrum. Not to mention that you're just upset that Fox News exists. I'm sorry that News Corporation is a well-established corporate conglomerate. If you really hate News Corp so much, why don't you just not watch Fox News or stop antagonizing people by leaving such conspiracy theory-laden comments in the comments section just so that you can bitch and whine about your lofty and misguided ideas? Also, love your spelling of beetle there. I really do appreciate you fudging up such an easy word and muddying the reputation of the Beatles in the process. And the whole claim with Japan outlawing this sort of forced hatred of other countries is ridiculous because the Japanese have their own bias, first of all, and secondly, I don't see any law that prohibits hatred of other countries. Maybe you could use the Geneva Convention as a foundation, but that is not relative to Japan, nor did it originate in Japan. So unless you can tell me the specific statute where Japan states that hatred of other countries is illegal, I am going to consider this another outcropping of your deluded nature. See, I'm being a skeptic, like you say in the comment. Finally, I want to show one more comment of Pinochimon's that ultimately shows how misguided and idiotic he is with his mindless rambling and ranting over stuff that is completely tangential to the topic at hand. In my previous commentary on Kion Gives You Facepalm, I criticized Kion for making silly and indefensible points regarding bronies. Now, here is what Pinochimon had to say regarding my take on Kion and his comments on bronies. Remember, the commentary was on my criticism of Kion. This is what Pinochimon had to say.
Stupid bronies get upset and decide to take stupid potshots at the otaku, bringing outdated information. Miyazaki was back in the early 60s, bro, fags. Seriously. Also, back then, Japan had very little understanding of what mental disorder was. Move over. You decide to stereotype Japan. Has these people with title no common sense? Someone kills a girl and he happened to be a big TV buff. Do you not think that most people, if not all, would actually have a brain and think past that?
When did I mention that bronies were attacking otakus? Why are you talking about how bronies horridly discriminate and persecute otakus and bringing up such superfluous points when I did not even address them in the video? Also, the US had trouble with identifying mental disorders as well. In fact, autism, for instance, was not formally described until 1943, and diagnoses in the 50s and 60s were rare. We barely knew about PDDs until the 1990s, so what is your point there, Pinocchio? Also, the last part of the comment I could not exactly understand because of your awkward grammatical structure, but if you're taking umbrage to people labeling anime or television as a prime motivator for murder, then that talking point should be spared for a more relevant video, not for a commentary where I talk about how someone misinterpreted a parody video. Way to be completely inaccurate and uninformed about my video. Your obtuse logic honestly fails here. In summation, I feel as though Pinochimon is trying his damnedest to be ethnocentric, Japanophilic, and overall, an active weeaboo who feels as though justifying his undue ardor for Japan and his contrasting unbridled rage for the USA is his primary goal in life. And it is no wonder that other people are not taking your comments seriously. This is because these are the etchings of a disturbed and troubled mind. There is no other way to describe it. If you think that the USA is nothing more than a hub for white nationalism, even though you seem to be ethnocentrist and lacking an understanding of civic nationalism, then obviously you are simply uttering seditious statements about the USA with a major bias. Your love of Japan is appalling, especially when you romanticize all elements of Japan, when it was Japan that killed 2,000 people in the Pearl Harbor attacks. But you're probably going to say that Japan was justified because we were such fascists back in the day. Sorry to say, but those arguments are nothing more than conspiracy theory claptrap designed to obfuscate the truth. My word of advice, Pinochimon: calm the hell down, stop spreading your weeabooism around, consult actual dictionaries, and take your own advice in regards to thinking before typing. That is all I have to say regarding this. This is Youngblood Fantasy 91, and ladies and gentlemen, I'll see you all in the brighter later.
Must have whiskey, oh, you know.